Behold the mighty Yeticus Maximus Stackimus. His real name is Ralph. He's from Jacksonville, Florida, and we're going to discuss today all kinds of things about his citadel and everything growing in the worlds of the warm Florida lands. He feasts solely on the flesh of beasts, and he wields a tennis racket like Thor's hammer against his foes, stacking Bitcoin like a dragon hoarding gold in his lair. Forged in the fires of fasting and self-conquest, he champions health through carnivore and pro-tennis strategy. Ralph has been an entrepreneur in the real estate scene by running a cash printing fleet of Florida vacation rentals. He has gone full mad scientist, fused his real estate work with Bitcoin reserves. So like strapping a jet engine on a bicycle, he's turned this business into an unholy inflation laughing hybrid empire where guests will sacrifice their fiat before his caffeinated stacking dragon. And meanwhile, Ralph sips espresso and smashes his tennis balls and builds upon the legend of Yeticus Maximus, one dip by at a time. So Ralph's motto is, "This is how empires are built." And he shares bold takes on X all the time on innovation, finance, fitness, even and tennis. Whether you ask for it or not, you're going to see a lot of tennis stuff. We're going to talk about that. So you can find him, Yeticus Maxi, on X. And let's hear from him how he's building his Bitcoin citadel. Welcome, Yeticus.
Oh, that was the best intro I've ever had. That was amazing.
Oh, thanks.
Very cool.
You helped me out with a bit of vibe narrative on some spicy language that I tweaked a little bit, but yeah, it was fun energy I wanted to throw out there, paralleling what is it that you really do as far as, okay, let's just start where could we start? Real estate. How did you get into real estate? Yeah. And going from real estate to landing in Florida? Tell me about how you got into just investment generally.
Yeah, so it's a long story actually. How far back should I go? Let's go like maybe let's go about
the moment
10 years
of your conception.
That's a long time ago. So yeah. I'm going to start. So I moved back to the U.S. I'm from New York. I'm from the U.S., but
okay.
I lived in Korea for about 10 years. I lived abroad for about 15. So the last thing I was doing is I was running a bar in Seoul, Korea. And it was really amazing. It was like a cash cow. We absolutely, can I curse, by the way?
Oh, yeah, it's all good. Don't matter. This is for adults.
I stepped in shit basically because I had an idea that I kind of liked and my partner and one of my best friends liked, but I did not know that it would translate to the market. We were probably the only two Americans in the area where we were. So we built a Western style bar, like it's just like a pub, like a dingy pub. And it turns out a lot of expats liked it and a lot of Koreans liked it. So we ended up doing pretty well, but very stupidly, we had no idea what we were doing. Like as far as like we could take in cash and then we were like, not doing anything smart with it. We weren't investing it. Yeah. Now what? Exactly. So
how did you end up in Korea?
What's that?
How did you end up in Korea?
Oh, so I was working for SUNY in New York for the school, and I was bringing in mostly foreign students to study in the U.S. And it was like a couple groups, a couple countries mainly. Like it was a lot of Brazilians, a lot of Colombians, a lot of Koreans, and a lot of Chinese. So I was the one who was like getting them in, taking them to immigration, working on their student visas. And I kept asking on the other side, like, hey, if I wanted to reverse the trend here and come your way, like how would that work? And I asked the Brazilian liaison, I asked the Colombian, everybody was super, hospitable. Like, come, we'll set you up with an apartment, with language study. And at some point I took
looking for a little adventure.
Yeah, I was, because I was getting a master's degree. I tell my son this all the time. I got this degree that I've used absolutely 0 times in my life.
So, yeah, it feels like it. I mean, yeah, unless you're a particular niche in a way. I mean, I got a computer science degree and I went into software and I wasn't working on computers in the way that I was studying computers at all. typical. Anyway.
Think it's helping you now with having the show and having you comfort with tech?
Definitely a familiarity with like a skill stack. Like it's sort of like, okay, general use of computer stuff, but it's a lot of like computer science and engineering. A lot of times it teaches you how to problem solve or how to think critically or how to be curious and think. As far as the specific like language or tech or thing used, all of that is so arbitrary and relative.
Right.
You're just going to learn something new all the time. So,
I'll
but
tell
anyway,
you, the problem solving skill is it's like not to be messed with. I really think that's the key skill for everything. Like I feel like everything I'm going to talk to you about today, it comes down to problem solving. Like
totally.
Whether it's diet, whether it's investing, whether it's entrepreneurship, it's like if you can problem solve, you're in pretty good shape. That's really
engage your brain, like whatever it is. It could be over here, it could be up, down, left, and sideways. If you're engaged and thinking, it don't matter so much like that you got like a star on a certificate, necessarily. So
anyway. No, it really doesn't. My son asked me, like, did studying give you the ability to critically think? And, in some ways it's hard to measure that. It's possible, but it certainly doesn't feel that way. It feels like it's just a skill. Like since I'm in real estate as like a day job, I meet a lot of young hustlers who are not formally educated and they're really good. It's like, I don't know if that's a talent, if that's work ethic. I'm not exactly sure how to quantify it, but it's definitely a sixth sense to like just have the ability to go out there, work hard, talk to people, and just start solving the problems as they come at you.
Yeah, people that are good at that, like applying themselves, being engaged, and the social aspect to it too. Like being smart and thinking, being engaged, but being able to interact with people, and just having a package that can navigate life and the world and getting out of it what you put into it. It could be easy for some people. And like I grew up as like a shy kid or whatever. And it's like, well, I'll just follow the rules, follow the steps, do what I need to do, get the degree, just get the career, and I'll just be fine. But the guest I was talking to yesterday said people can get addicted to a salary where it's safe, it's comfortable, you get used to it, and maybe you look for higher salaries, but you get sort of addicted to a salary and you don't want to leave that safety. Being an entrepreneur, so like doing what you did where you cross the ocean, go to another country, start getting into real estate, maybe being your own boss in a way, it's risk and it can feel like, oh, what am I doing? But it's all yours too. So you can reap the reward.
There was one moment where I realized how risky it is. It was the very first day. We had done a soft opening for the bar and we had some friends there and we made sure the taps worked and stuff. So like we knew we had a functioning thing. But the first night that I walked down, I had the key to the door. It was downstairs. So we went into a basement. There was a big door and we built like almost like a meat locker. We built these plastic things so that you could open up and it wouldn't be freezing. Seoul can be very cold, which I think people don't realize sometimes. So I went through the meat locker and like when I was doing that, I just realized like there's nobody's going to save me if this doesn't work. Like, you know that scene from Superman where like he grabs Lois Lane and he's lifting her up. And
sure.
Goes, I got you. And she goes, well,
okay. Yeah. Right. Cutter.
That's what it was like. It was like, well, who's like, if I'm not the last in line, like who's got me? There's nobody there. Like I'm the last in line. And that's actually, that risk is actually such a beautiful feeling because that makes you go, oh, okay, it's max effort. Like what am I waiting for? I'm not looking to anybody to save me. There's no big brother. There's no savior. It's my work ethic, so
people can shy away from that, but it's the spice of life. And like they say, failure is not the opposite of success. It's the price of admission.
That's
so like you're going to fail. But like 8 times fall down, 9 times get up. Okay. So you failed. It's only a failure if you leave it like that. Like basically you always learn something from it. And then, okay, you learn something, you lean in differently or harder or try something else. And you keep going, you're engaged, you're living life. And then those are the juicy moments that just are so rewarding. Like, oh, especially when it works out over time and you look back on that and it's like, yeah, life well lived.
Oh, definitely.
You learn Korean?
I learned, so my Korean is a tough question. I studied Korean really hard. So I actually did maybe about 6 months of class. Like when I first got there, I did 3 months straight just so I could function. I could, get on a menu and order and chat with people on the street, ask where things were, like just survival Korean. But then right before opening the bar, I did it again. And what happened is I kind of have like a business Korean. I have a very strange way of speaking because one, I have terrible accent, a thick American accent. So it's not like I'm tricking anybody by going like, oh, is he part Korean?
Yeah.
So
it's hard to sound native.
It's very hard. And I'm not really great at it. I speak a couple other languages and my pronunciation is always a little suspect. I think I'm just so like, I grew up pretty introverted and I think maybe some of that just like makes me stubborn about learning the accent. I can't completely explain it because when I speak in Spanish, I sound more Italian. When I speak in Italian, I sound more American. When I speak in Korean, I definitely sound American. So I'm not getting it to all gel correctly, but I can get by in a couple languages. So I'm lucky too.
Cool.
But the Korean was decent, and I ended up with like this kind of business. Like, in other words, if I'm calling you to order kegs, I'm amazing, And then what happens is because I can do that really well, they'll start asking me, "Hey, there's a holiday coming up, or there's a sports game or something." And they'll start asking me more like loose questions, and that's where I'm not that good. Like, especially if it's political or like something where you need like a vocabulary group. So I have a very limited vocabulary group, and then not a great accent. But
like you learn enough to communicate a bit, and they're like, "Oh, Korean." Da 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 da.
And Koreans can be rough. If there's Koreans listening, this. It's Koreans can be very like. In other words, I've made while I'm serving somebody, I've made a slight mistake in an honorific, and they punish you. Like, in other words, if this guy is this much older than you, you're supposed to speak up. But if this guy's this much older and older than the other guy is older than you, you're supposed to speak more up. And like when I did that wrong, it's like it's a little bit of the ending of the sentence. You use different endings, and then you also use tone. Korean is a fairly flat language, so it's a lot of it is grammatical. And when you're learning, these are the mistakes that are very easy to make. You're trying to just like, oh, I've heard it said this way, so you repeat it. And like usually when you're learning language, mimicking is good, but if you mimic the wrong honorific, you end up offending the person, and you've offended somebody who's high up. So usually their underlings, especially if it's like a business meeting or something, their underlings will come tap you on the shoulder and go like, you really offended Mr. Lee. You better apologize. And you're like, I don't mean it. I'm just learning Korean. And the problem is when you say that, I feel like when I've done that in other languages, like if you're in Latin America and you make a mistake with usted or something, nobody cares. They'll tell you.
Yeah, right.
And that's it. Like they won't embarrass you. They're so hospitable. But Koreans will embarrass you on this because that's the issue is that saving face is a really important thing, and you've actually made them lose face. So now you're going to get that energy back. They're going to embarrass you. so that's
it's so interesting to think about. I mean, it's just the differences, the language, the culture, and in a way, I mean, various cultures can be like that, but kind of the hierarchy of respect. There's levels of seniority or respect and
it's
hierarchy.
Tricky for Americans, right? Like we're not used to that.
Yeah, right.
There's a Korean expression. There's a place for everybody as long as everybody's in their place. And I really like that because I think that's the culture is amazing. Like
order, things in order.
Yeah, and like if you abide by that, you'll have a decent life. Like there is a kind of big brother system. There's this Confucianism and this idea that like people help each other. There's a civic mindedness. It's a very beautiful thing, but that also creates a glass ceiling and it creates other problems. Like foreigners can only have certain jobs. Like my wife, who's Korean, she got really far in her career, but like kind of hit a glass ceiling, and like she loves it here because she's able to be like everything she's supposed to be. Which is like.
Is she Korean?
She's Korean. Yeah. So we met while I was there, and my son was born in Korea.
Oh, cool.
So we're a family of 4. 2 were born in New York and 2 were born in Seoul. So it's kind of interesting.
Oh,
we broke
cool.
up, like into
a friend of mine from, I grew up with, and over the years ago, he traveled to Korea, met his wife in Korea. They ended up moving back to the States. She just had so their kids are mixed, half American, half South Korean, and she had a funny story about early in the morning where the place where they lived. Early in the morning, there'd be a guy that came around and picked up laundry. If like when you had laundry, you put it out, and somebody came around and whatever it was, maybe it was a business or something else, but the laundry guy was kind of out early and would be going down the street, and it would be like an alarm call because he'd be calling out for laundry. He'd be going, say talk, say talk.
That's laundry. That's good.
Say talk. Anyway, that was like the alarm, the morning say talk.
Yeah, it's almost like a rooster or something.
Yeah, right. So you have, her family's back there still. You go back and visit Korea from time to time. And have you been back in a while?
I haven't been in a long time, actually. We've really settled into the US. The last time, like, her family has come, stayed with us. We have in our house here, we have a Florida room, which is like a sun porch, but it does have a bed in it. So we actually just gave that to them, and they stayed for a while, but it's probably over a year and a half. It's a while ago, so it's been a while. So it's a long trip there, and I flew it back and forth a lot of times. So I'm like not really
opposite side of the world. When I think about those cultures where there's a real strong kind of expectation of kind of things in their place, hierarchies and control, and like, it can be good for a society where, like social cohesion perhaps, and order, and people who look after each other, or kind of fit roles and don't disrupt things. On the other hand, when it's a culture like with technology, you can just go out and do things. There aren't limits, or you're only limited by maybe your self constraints. You can go out and do things, be an entrepreneur, go, think creatively and just be bold, go out there and put yourself out there. I wonder how that culture manages, say, things like Bitcoin. Bitcoin being very common in Korea, much at all, or
yeah, it's super interesting. Like, I don't know if you're familiar with AA on Twitter, on X.
He just followed me, I think, yesterday.
He's a good follow. He's really interesting, and he's really like sincere. And one thing, he started to track buys inside of a group that he made. And one thing I was blown away. I'm not sure how many people were in it. I would say it's probably like 100 or 200 people. I'm really guessing. So if somebody wants to correct me, go for it. But what was super interesting about that is, like, just there's so many Americans in that group. So obviously, if you track it by country, there's more Americans. But there were so many buys from inside Korea. I was like, every single time he released stats, I was blown away by that. It's just like, wow, like Korea just keeps coming. And I think it's to what you were saying, is that because there's such a, like, everybody in their place kind of civic mindedness, there's also this, unfortunately, that doesn't always work in your favor. Like, you're also held back. Your individuality is, like, your sovereignty is not there.
Right.
I think there's this real desire to, like, have something else, to have something that is your own personal property, is your own sovereignty. So I think and also the fact that Korea is just, like, killing it technologically in terms of, like, internet speed and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, that kind of forges this absolute path and bridge to Bitcoin. So I think you'll see Korea, like, per capita is probably more like one of the highest Bitcoin buyers. It's pretty cool how that works out.
Yeah, there's definitely the young generation is different than their elders, and a lot of video gaming culture, of course.
A ton.
There's also less incentive to have families. I've heard things about kind of like, well, in a lot of countries perhaps, but the Asian countries, sometimes the younger generation, they're not as prioritized around settling down, having a family. They're kind of, I've heard things about demographically that there aren't a lot of new and up and coming families occurring.
Yeah, I've heard a lot about that. I mean, I'm old in that regard. So, I mean, it's like for my generation, it wasn't that way. Like, it was, when I was there, I think a lot of people they were dating, they were actively trying to, like, a lot of my friends who were guys were saying, like, I'm looking for a wife, like young Korean guys. Like, I mean, I say young, we're probably 35 at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But in other words, they were like, my mom's on my back. Like, I better get married soon. I better find a wife, have kids.
When are you going to have kids?
Yeah. So, I
Yes,
mean,
Mom.
but it's powerful because that family, I mean, that's also one really cool thing about, I think, a lot of East Asian countries is family really bands together. If you need a, deposit for a house or something, like, your family they'll pool their money. They'll ask the neighbors, they'll pull favors, like, they'll get it done. That's where there's a certain, like, ingenuity to the way the financial system works. But it's also because, like, our banking system and the Korean banking system are pretty different as far as, like, how you can get a mortgage and stuff. Like, and this is one thing I tell young Americans all the time, like in my real estate job, is that we're very lucky. Like, we have 30-year mortgages, which allow you to get into a house that you otherwise would never be able to do.
Right.
And then if you're doing a 5-year loan in another country, it's much, much harder. And that's where people get very creative. They start using their networks and their family to kind of pool money together, which is an interesting thing to see. And that's also why I think people like Bitcoin over there, because there's like, the whole system is not in your favor. So
something like a Fediments or a federation of, like, a kind of like a DeFi, but you have a trusted, not just like your local family, but like a wider circle of trusted people. And there's a pool, and however it's tracked and ledgers they use, whatever, but what goes around comes around, but you contribute to it and it comes around. And so, different families, like affording a house, that it's people's turn in a way, or it comes to be your turn, and people come out beyond just your immediate family to help you. And then over time too, you contribute to this pool as well, and you're helping others, and then it comes around and you can get kind of that down payment for stuff. It's interesting.
Yeah. But the problem is the down payments are probably higher based on, what you would pay. I mean, especially with stuff in America, like with a VA loan, you have 0% down. With FHA, you have 3.5% down. There are some really, aggressive products here. That's also why we get into all these, like, crises as well. So, I mean, there's plenty of bad about that, but
right.
we are kind of, we're kind of pushed into it. So, I mean, it's one of the things that I would like to talk about is that we're kind of pushed into, especially it seems to me like the younger guys that I talk to on X are kind of anti-housing right now. And I always think that's a kind of funny thing, because it's the very things that, like, just to step back a little bit, like, so we had the bar, we knew we wanted to get out of that, and we knew we wanted to do something different. So my partner started to look at real estate a lot. And then we started to go into investing in real estate. And I was also an agent, and I was doing the two things at once. And those, like, the reason that was attractive to me was to be, more in control of my own life, my own finances, like where I'll be in 15 years and 25 years and 30 years. And I feel like that kind of, that desire to invest and have something stable, I think that's also what later kind of kicked around in my brain that made me go, I have to get involved in Bitcoin. Like, when I had a friend come to me who I knew from Mexico, and we were having lunch in New York. We hadn't seen each other in, 15, 20 years. And he was like, are you into Bitcoin? I said, no, I don't know much about it, blah, blah, blah. And then he was like, you've got to get involved. Like, it's everything you love. It's revolution, it's power, it's tech, it's self-sovereignty. And, like, everything he said, just like, I mean, also he knew how to talk to me. He's very poetic, and, he's a good salesman. He just, like, got into my head. Like, everything was just, like, sizzling after that. I left that lunch thinking, he's always got a bunch of ideas. And I thought, what does he know, kind of thing. And then
smart guy.
Yeah. Super smart guy, super early adopter, and, good for him. And I'm really happy. I actually thanked him, like, years later. That conversation changed my life, because I couldn't get your words out of my head, even though I wasn't really focused on it. It was just one of those things.
Planted the seed. And also your mindset was ready, because, like, if you're in real estate or you have properties, you're aware of property rights and the counterparty risks, or the various things that come with that, whether it's a tenant or a governance, like Yeah, property
A lot of
taxes or
municipalities,
whatever.
there's a lot of regulation. There's a lot of
Yeah.
municipalities. Like I got to go down, unfortunately into the belly of the beast a few times. I
Mm.
did 2 projects that taught me massive lessons, not necessarily in a good way. Where
Mm.
one, I was trying to change zoning on a 10-unit place, and I went to the city hall and I presented, and I had a civil engineer to kind of explain some of the basics of how we were going to do it physically. And you kind of see the machine work. You see how they discuss it, how some people, like there was a panel of 19 people, and I felt it. Like as I was talking to them, I was like, this person's against me. This person's against me. I mean, you just could feel the energy, and
Yeah.
then that one was okay. And we actually got what we were looking to accomplish done. But then I also went, I hate to like sell people out, but I'm going to. I
It's
went
all
to
good.
do something similar. We had 19 units in Daytona Beach, which Florida is a pretty like as far as like property rights and stuff, it's a pretty good state. There's
Right.
actually incredible laws about homesteading your house, where it
Oh.
protects you from debtors, it protects you from tax going up, from insurance going up. There's some really good laws. However, there's also, that's more like statewide and county-wide where the laws are really good. The local municipalities, some are really good, some are not so good. In Daytona Beach, which has some issues like drug issues and et cetera, I think we know this. That municipality was incredibly difficult. I've never seen more regulation, and I've never seen more obstacles. And that was a huge. And my partner from the bar was in that deal with me. And we've seen a lot because we had to register our business in Korea, which as a foreigner was a very difficult thing. Most people told me it was impossible. We did it. So we're like, oh, regulations. Like we know how to, go through things slowly and step by step and get things done. So we thought, okay, we'll take the same mindset to Daytona. We'll be okay. It wasn't the case at all.
Oh.
They really made it impossible, and they basically chased us out. And that taught me a lot, because what it showed me is that we weren't really the owners. Like we
Right.
thought we were.
Yeah.
We were on paper, but in terms of like, they hit us with fines that were, completely out of control. Like where I think if I would have countersued them and said, you can't, like a unappointed governing body can't attack us that way. Like we have the right to be tried by our peers. I think we would have won, but it also wasn't worth it. It just was like, at some point, it's like, guys, we're just going to get out of your city.
The time and energy and all that, and
No,
you hear
intense.
nightmares about like HOAs, double-edged sword, where okay, you want certain standards and keep things nice, and then HOAs can go crazy too, with things, all their
Telling
little
you how
rules.
tall your grass can be or what color park
Oh
bench.
yeah, anything, just kind of whatever. So you from Korea, and you had the bar, and then moved on back to New York, and you
Yeah.
got into real estate more starting in New York.
Yeah. So like what happened is, I mean, I was lucky. I had some great customers in the bar. I had a guy who, he was an Amazon seller at the time. This was 2015, where I was thinking about getting out of the bar. And he basically showed me how to sell on Amazon. He was talking about it, telling me that something I had said to him, a book I recommended or something, inspired him. So then I was telling him, I'm about to change my life, sell the bar. I need some kind of like liaison job to make some money while I'm switching countries. And he was like, you should do this. So I was like, well, how did you learn it? And he said, if you buy me a bottle of whiskey, I'll explain it all to you. So that's how I learned that business. And that kind of held me over while I got to the US, got settled, and got licensed to be an agent in New York, which I'm still licensed in New York. I still work in New York, even though I'm sitting in Florida.
And then you can compare what's happening in New York now, or you think of New York City, I guess, generally, but New York
I'm from New
is
York City too. So
okay. So
from Brooklyn.
we see what's happening in New York City and property tax talk, whatever, trying to make it's like, okay, things are expensive. You don't want to cut out up and coming younger generations that feel left behind or can't get
No,
their
they
slice.
feel left behind too. They are left behind.
Yeah. So housing, well, like with fiat and everything, housing itself, it can be like that store of value where, a lot of boomers, a lot of people have invested in real estate as their whole store of value. But you have all the counterparty risks. And then you see a place like a jurisdiction in New York raising and raising and raising property taxes or having all kinds of controls from government. And then Florida, on the other hand, is even talking about maybe, I heard, getting rid of property tax.
It looks like it might happen. I mean, until it's done, I kind of don't believe it, but I can't believe how much, momentum it has. It literally looks like it might happen.
That's really interesting. And so people with some sense and agency, if you're into property rights and having what's yours and keeping what you built, people would be like, well, I'm going to move from New York to Florida like you did.
Yeah.
Perhaps. I mean, was that one incentive? Was the regulations,
Oh yeah. No, it was a huge incentive. I mean, it's funny because I was working in both sides. We were doing deals in Florida. We're basically working in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, New York, and Florida all at once, which is very interesting because you're seeing different systems of doing the same thing. So there's a lot of like compare and contrast. And Florida, I mean, of course, COVID also, it plays into it because when I was during the COVID time, like we were so locked down in New York. I lived on one of the busiest streets. I lived on 4th Ave in Brooklyn, which is probably the right by Atlantic Ave, which is maybe the craziest driving in the world. I've driven in Mexico City and Seoul. I've driven in some tough places, and that little stretch of New York, in my opinion, is the hardest and the worst.
Oh boy.
So, and there's a lot going on. Like there's people walking, there's bikers, there's delivery guys, there's trucks, there's all kinds of stuff happening at once. And there's 3 main roads there. And that was I was the only person there during the beginning of COVID, like in March of 2020. I was the only person, and I just couldn't believe it. And I was still working because from the real estate perspective, I was also working for a company at that point, a small like mom and pop property management company. We were considered essential workers. I was in somebody's apartment under their fridge, connecting the water line. And, like while I was doing that, I have, my colleague 2 inches away from me, and we're like, we're going to die. Like this is, if we listen to the news, we're dead tomorrow morning. So, and I did feel like kind of sick for a while, but I never was like that bad. And then say 2 weeks later, I was in Florida doing the same thing, and there's people drinking, there's people outside, like, it was such an absolute black and white contrast. It wasn't subtle. It wasn't like you could miss. So, I mean, then you're like, well, wait, what's going on?
What's real here? Actually, I had a similar weird cultural experience during COVID. So living in Oregon, and if all I knew was my workplace and my state and the narrative I was getting, it was like, well, it's for good reasons, I guess. We just got to 2 weeks to stop the spread. Well, okay, maybe 2 years. Okay, maybe forever, like whatever.
2 weeks.
And then I traveled. I traveled for some reason to go to Texas to do some business. And I went to Texas kind of in my Oregon mindset about managing COVID. And even as I had my angst and doubts about it all, I was like, well, I don't want to cause trouble. I don't want to make people uncomfortable, whatever. I went to Texas, and it was just, I started looking around. I'm like, oh, like people are acting normal. Like I'm taking my mask off.
Same. I
can be normal. It broke loose my sense of like, I think we're okay. Like this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
So anyway,
see, but that's really interesting, right? So like that same feeling of like, this is ridiculous. Like I feel that towards some of the laws in New York to real estate. Like, I mean, now they're saying you can't have gas stoves, and meanwhile, they haven't really built up any nuclear power. They closed Indian Point. Like there's like every regulation has a counter effect that has not been planned out. In fact, it's even been counter planned. It's been planned to not work.
Right.
So, I mean, watching that in the Northeast and then coming to Florida where things are already like built out and they're business friendly and stuff, it's pretty clear this is the easier place to run a business and to have sovereignty and stuff. So that's why this whole process, like I'm driving down, listening to Michael Saylor, and I'm, 15, 17 hours driving, and I'm just getting like all geeked out on like, I have to have more sovereignty, like in real estate, in Bitcoin. And I felt super late also because it was,
we all do.
Yeah, of course. Right. So as I'm doing it, it's giving me motivation though. Like I'm going to bust it when I get there. Like when I arrive, I'm just going to work because I want to catch up basically. And I think that's the feeling that's so interesting. Like that's where you start to not only do you work hard, you start to save better, you start to think a little bit better. And that's also when I started to eat carnivore, because I was, I didn't mention this. I'm technically hypoglycemic. So I'm like,
Okay.
my whole family is diabetic essentially.
Oh.
So I was on my way there, and switching to carnivore. My wife forced me. I can't take credit for it. She started eating it even though she's 100% healthy.
Oh, wow.
And, she was like, I want you to try this, because this is in the tail end of running the bar, when I would carry the kegs with my fingertips. When I would do that, I was losing feeling in my hands afterwards. So I went to the doctor, and he was saying, it's your sugar's spiking, and it's just messing up your extremities. And he was like, there's danger that could hurt your kidneys, etc. You know, they kind of scare you, but I was lucky because I wasn't going to an American doctor. I was going to a Korean doctor. And he was like, how do you want to go about this? I can give you medicine. We could work on your diet. He was like, but most people don't like to do that. And luckily I do have some discipline. So I said, let's try with the diet side. So I started with like common sense, good diet, which is like smaller portions, some protein, some carbs. But then it wasn't really working, especially when we moved to the US. Something about just the way we eat here.
Yeah.
More flour, more
the quality of food and how it's farmed, all the things. Yeah.
So many factors. So my wife was like, she started to read about oxalates, and basically was saying, why don't you try just eating nothing but red meat? Just do 2 weeks, see how you feel. And, maybe this solves something. And I was I was basically a little whiny bitch about it. Like I was super, I wasn't really open to it. I was stubborn, and I was concerned that if I get on the tennis court, I was coaching at that time too. I was concerned that if I get on the tennis court, I'm going to pass out, because what was happening is I was getting really weak to the point of passing out from the sugar spiking and then dropping. And when it drops, it really feels awful. It feels like your body's inside out, and you just kind of like lay down and
exhausted. Yeah.
So it's an intense feeling. So I was thinking, this is going to happen on the tennis court where there's kids around, and like how am I going to do this? So I was really, really stubborn about it, but she forced me, and it was great, because next thing I know, it's the opposite. I did have like a keto flu for a couple of weeks where I felt
it's a shift. Yeah.
Oh, it's a shift. That's why, like, anybody who tells me, oh, I did it and there was no issues, I'm like, you're full of shit, because it's actually really a painful process, but it's a wonderful process too, because then you're like, why do I have the keto flu? Why do my knees hurt? This doesn't make sense. Why does the back of my neck hurt and my ear, and like it's really weird symptoms, and
your
like
body's like detoxing, is like, give me sugar. You have weird cravings too, like you're like fruit. I just want fruit, or like you start scrounging and rummaging for any carbs.
Grapes so bad, like that, like sweet little pop of sugar, like, I mean, and it's funny too, because most people would say grapes are healthy, but it's unfortunately for me, not so much. And that's like, that was one of the things that I just had to avoid, all those like cheap, quick sugars. And,
which are readily available and packaged and sold and so attractive. And if you just don't buy it, or when you get into scrounge mode, if you open up the cupboard of the fridge, when there are those excuses and little options, you sneak it, or I'll just have a little, and then you're like, ah. And
I was so bad about that. I would have the kind bars and stuff, like, and I would consider it like it was healthy for my hypoglycemia. So I had like a stash in the glove compartment in the house and in my work bag, just all over the place. And then it was the same thing. I would have a little bit, like just go nuts with it, and it's like, that's definitely an addiction. So with my wife's help, like she's a great cook also, she just kind of forced me to get off of that. And it's been amazing, because I actually had jelly beans in my bag, thinking, okay, in case I pass out on the tennis court, I'll tell my friends, like, give me some jelly beans and wake me up, basically, and it never came to that. And now it's like, I mean, obviously it's years later, but now I'll go out, first thing in the morning, I'll play tennis for 3 hours in this heat, which is so much more intense. And my energy is fine. And it's from the fact that my whole system is more balanced.
That's awesome. Your wife sounds very smart and disciplined, and
she's smart,
and cares a lot about you to, help keep your feet to the fire. How long have you been carnivore?
Definitely. It's like 3 years now. 4 years. I think
I'm not disciplined enough, and I'll go through periods of time where I do it for a while and then I relapse basically because I mean it's an addiction. Or if my wife's, if my wife does more of the cooking and isn't fully on board, and like I get home, I've had a day, I'm tired, I'm just hungry, and well, there's some pasta. Well, I end up eating what's made, and I'm just not very disciplined or planned about it. But but I have felt better. Like, okay, you go through a little bit of the flu, and sometimes like fasting as well. If you fast for a little while and you go through that detox feeling, and it kind of, it's like it's hard and then it gets easier, and then it can get hard and then it can get easier. And just with time, like staying on carnivore, it's like your body detoxes, it goes into ketosis. And when you get over these humps, your energy changes. And I've felt that where suddenly I had just a different kind of a baseline grounded energy instead of like these peaks and then like, oh, I'm so tired. And then, oh, I feel so good. And then I'm like really tired. It was kind of a good baseline in a way.
Yeah, I agree. I was having these like 2 o'clock crashes where I'm a avid espresso drinker, so I mean that hasn't changed. but I would
Yeah.
like at 2 o'clock, even if I drank an espresso, I would basically take a nap. I'd be so tired. If I was in the office, it doesn't matter where I was. Like, I was just getting these like midday exhaustions, and that's gone away. Like, I'll still get, a little tired, but now I'll have the espresso and I'm just like ready to go again. My energy is better. And so I think what happens, I think this is hard to understand, is that when your window of sugar going up and down is actually higher than when you're in ketosis, essentially. So like once you start doing carnivore, you actually bring the whole thing down. And that's what kind of terrified me, is that like, oh, I'm going to pass out. But then you learn how to use that optimally. Like, your body just does that. After you go through those keto flu symptoms, you're able to have the protein basically building everything, which is pretty wild, because then your energy is stable. Just like you said, you're not having those like crashes and peaks to crash, which is dangerous. Even so, I mean, for me, it was like kind of forced because I did have a health issue. But I think even for somebody who doesn't, like, I think my wife's healthier too, actually. So it's kind of funny how that worked out. And my son is 14, and he basically, like, he's not strict like we are, but because he eats in school and he eats whatever he wants, but he does eat carnivore with us a lot of the time. And also, what I want to tell you is I do cheat, and I really try not to feel bad about it. Like, there's a lot of people who are super militant about it. Like, you can't cheat, like like they feel guilty for 2 weeks or something. I don't do that, because one thing that I noticed is that, say it's a holiday and like somebody makes, they make pasta that's delicious. I'm from an Italian family. Like, there's going to be pasta. So,
yeah, right.
So if I eat that, basically the next day I feel it. Like, my body is not happy at all. I'm usually like sick to my stomach. Like, I have basically instant feedback, which then I go, I don't want to feel like this anymore. So like the discipline kind of takes care of itself in that regard. Like the physical feedback is the discipline in that sense. I don't really have to force myself into being disciplined.
Yeah. And I mean, it can be hard that way, where you don't want to be so vigilant about your diet that when you go to, you go to dinner, a friend invites you to dinner, and whether they're conscientious or not about it, maybe it's good, wholesome food, but yeah, it's like, like that great Italian pasta of various kinds, and appreciating it, participating in that, and then being aware of how it makes you feel, but not being so hyper vigilant about every meal. I mean,
I would never offend a friend or a grandma, with my diet. Like, in other words, it's not their problem.
Right. Yeah.
That's what I mean. Like, if it's a holiday, a birthday or something, I mean, I'll even have a slice of cheesecake. Like, I won't have the whole thing, but I'll have a bite, like I'll play along, but I will have the reaction. And then I'm like, this is why I do carnivore.
Yeah.
This really
feel
makes
it. Yeah. So awareness of your body and how food makes you feel. And now as an athlete too, like coaching tennis, enjoying the sport, you're mindful of health and energy and all those things. It's ironically just recently, like at work. So like kids are in sports. I've got a coworker who's, the team has a fundraiser to raise some money for their team. And what are they selling? Donuts.
Oh, I know. We did it too. My tennis team did that. We'd go to tennis events with a booth and sell crap.
Yeah.
I still can't believe we did that.
It's kind of hard because culturally, I mean, it's like, treats sell or things that people don't need. It's like, well, it's a fundraiser. So it's like for me at work randomly, it's like, oh, someone generously brought in donuts for everybody. And I'm looking at this pile of glaze, and part of me really wants one. And it's like, you know what? Almost out of respect, it's like, I'll have a donut because part of me wants it. And another part of me wants to appreciate, well, thank you for the gesture. And I'm going to not be like, yeah, thanks, but no thanks. But it's really hard because it's people have their go-to things like, hey, I brought in donuts for everybody. And it's like, oh, thanks. But no thanks. Anyway, it's hard because it's just pervasive in our culture, the treats and
It is. People are pretty good though. Like a lot of people will tell me like, oh, they'll tell me you can't eat this. You know what I mean? So it's really funny. Like family members do that to me and stuff. So I mean, I don't really want to make it their problem, but
Sure.
they do that. I think they're curious. And now what's really cool is a lot of like my nephews and stuff, they're into it. So
Cool.
it's funny too, because they're also the Bitcoiners. So it's like the two worlds are definitely intertwined. Like, I don't know if you've seen the push-up challenge that's on X.
Yeah, variously. Like, for example, Bring Facts here, he does his push-ups all the
Yes,
time.
he's intense. He's one of the guys that inspires me all the time.
So when I met him, I've got another buddy, co-founder of MicroSeed here. He does burpees. He does a burpee regimen every day. And my buddy and we met Bring Facts down in El Salvador, and they're doing burpees and push-ups. Bring Facts was doing his regularly 30 push-ups at a time here, there, and everywhere throughout the day.
He does like a massive amount. I don't know
yeah.
If you're tell us the amount you did yesterday. If you're listening, text us.
Yeah. If you're still listening, Ahmad, yeah, probably like several hundred, but
it's hundreds.
Yeah. So he inspired me. Actually, this morning I did some push-ups this morning, just trying to I'm not really disciplined when it comes to fitness and health, but then the push-up challenge like that is inspiring. Like, yeah, I need to be doing more, or just instead of like having a big effort at the gym, just fit it in here and there a little bit throughout my day. Also with diet, you're inspiring me now to recommit myself to carnivore, because I keep threatening to my wife that I'm going to do carnivore. Like I'll have some meal or I ate bad one day and I feel it. And I'm like, damn it, why do I do this? And then I'm like, okay, I'm going to do carnivore.
What does she say when you say that? Like, does that scare her, or is she like, come on, let's do it?
She's supportive of it. It's just cooking differently. Or sometimes like when you cook in the house, or depending on what you're cooking or the type of meat, like I have friends that hunt and they'll have like deer or elk, or I'll get some fish, deer, elk, some of the game, and you cook it in the house and there's a smell.
Oh,
It smells more.
I closed the window right before I started with you because I didn't want, there was pretty noisy outside. And the reason it's open is the smell, because we had steaks last night. So it's like,
right.
It gets through the house.
So she will eat meat, but she isn't as into just full on meat as much. I mean, she likes her carbs and pasta for sure. I have to be disciplined. Like I don't need her to do what I'm doing, and she's supportive of what I'll do, but I kind of have to put the effort in myself a little bit to ensure that if I'm going to do this, I got to make sure that, I'm not like forcing it on her or making it real complicated or make my drama or whatever. Just do me. I got to do me.
It is tricky though, because you're basically like we have an 8-year-old who doesn't eat carnivore, and like it's important that she has her own life and her own stuff. So I mean, I don't want her, like if she wants chicken nuggets, that's fine with me. I'm not but like I think it's important that she has her own stuff. But that is hard because then you're like double cooking.
Right, stuff like that, and then also you don't want to have. Or for like your kids, create a relationship with food that feels forced or negative or, whatever, where they feel like they sneak treats or whatever, but like the food tastes good and it's what they want, and it's not so forced that like, oh, I eat stuff I don't like, or but anyway, it's a path to navigate.
You know
um
what's funny though, like from a standpoint of like what they like to eat, like for kids, but I mean, like we're kids too. Like I'm still a 12-year-old at heart, right?
yeah.
Is that like you used to want to eat meat? You know what I mean? Like you
Yeah,
didn't want to eat your vegetables. It's really
yeah,
funny.
right.
Like sometimes like when I'm in a restaurant and I'm ordering, like I can make that joke with the waiter. Like I'll just say like, oh, I hate my vegetables, because I'll say like, hey, can I just have a steak on a plate? And they're like, oh, it comes with this side, with that, with blah, blah. And I feel like you almost have to like, understand that you're breaking a cultural norm. So I usually joke about that. Like I just hate vegetables, and then they usually kind of go, oh yeah, me too. Or like, it's funny how like you'll get to this point where like people are just, they understand like, yeah, vegetables, the last thing we like actually.
Yeah, right.
I mean,
My
a lot of these
12-year
things,
old.
of course, are great in like steak places. Like there's like cream of spinach and stuff, but actually spinach is horrible. Like it has so many
Oxalates.
oxalates. Yeah. It's like
Yeah.
that really upsets, like corn, spinach, like really upset my stomach badly.
Yeah, some of those leafy greens, I mean, okay, they've got vitamins and minerals and stuff that's good in them. They can be
They're
high
hard
in
to
oxalates.
process.
So unless you're drinking a lot of water or flesh in that, those oxalates can cause complication with your kidneys or,
It's bad for your kidneys. So that's why if you're hypoglycemic or if you have some kind of like, diabetic, any kind of insulin sensitivity, you really do have to be careful with that because they do like an ultrasound to see like if you have debris in your system, and you will. It's really based on your diet. If you eat the leafy greens, they're hard to process. And I
yeah.
used to love that. I used to put like, balsamic vinegar on spinach and eat it raw. And like, I mean, so many of my habits just like they were not good for me. It
And
really,
kind of like with Bitcoin, being on carnivore, it can kind of simplify, like, okay, you're limiting your options in a way. It also really simplifies your mode. Like, okay, yeah, it's a narrow one in a way, but also simple and straightforward. And so the patterns can be just straightforward. And then, so my 12-year-old, he's on the swim team and is very, very physically active. He's growing really big and strong. And he's,
nice.
like kids who are growing and they start eating a lot, eating more.
Oh, he'll eat a
He,
ton.
all by himself, he started craving steak. Like he loves steak. And we'd go to a restaurant and he'd just order a steak all by himself. I think partially it might've been something they talked about, nutrition on the team and stuff, but he loves it. And I'm kind of like, oh, well, good job, buddy. Instead of just not thinking about it or being like, whatever, he's conscious about what he's eating and how it makes him feel. And he's growing and getting strong. So anyway, yeah, just
I
doing what
mean,
feels right. And
it's great. 'Cause I'm sure they're telling him that a high protein diet is good. I think that's kind of a standard that we think now, but
yeah,
it's
they
good.
flipped the food pyramid flipped.
It's really cool to see that. It really is. Cause like that was definitely one of the things for, early on carnivore for me was just to flip it, like we're putting, um, this is one that I think some people think is disgusting, but some people love it. We're putting butter in coffee.
I've done that. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, it's a way to just get more fat because that's one of the things is that I've come to the realization that the more fat I eat, I'm so much fuller. I mean, even on the steak, if I just focus on the fat, if I eat the fat from the beginning, I get full quicker. Like everything is different based on taking in that fat intake.
Yeah, and actual decent quality butter versus sometimes you get a spread and it might say the word butter on there with an asterisk and it tastes good, and then you look at it and you're like, oh, canola oil or palm oil, and you're like, no. You start thinking about
Another
whole food.
simplified thing is just when you go into the grocery store, it doesn't matter if it's your local store or a Whole Foods or whatever. You just got to avoid the middle aisles. Like that's where all
Yeah.
the seed oils are mixed, like stuff that you have no idea that there was seed oil in it. Like even olive
Oh,
oil has seed oil in it. Like this is like, how does this happen? How did we get?
yeah.
So I mean,
Yeah.
it's so hard to like. I just look at so many labels now, and it's really tough. But we've also found local farms and stuff. So we've found some really great sources. And then the other thing is what's kind of, all the worlds combine at some point is some of the tennis community now, they're kind of split. There's like the guys who are like the Djokovic hardcore vegan, and then there's the carnivores as well. So We know
Interesting.
people on both sides, which is pretty interesting. We've even had lunch where both sides are at the table at the same time, which is
It's
hilarious.
interesting. Yeah, it's interesting to think about that. Ralph, you've inspired me. I'm gonna do carnivore. I'm gonna do carnivore now, and I'm gonna
Right, we're
stick
gonna
to
check
it.
up on you now. You're
Yeah,
in.
we'll have to check up on how this goes, but I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna go through the flu. I'll probably the way I've been eating. I'll probably go through some flu because, like, uh, last week somebody had a birthday and they brought in cheesecake, and I was like, it was one of those things. I'd been eating a little better, and then stupidly, I'm like appreciating the birthday, and oh, I like cheesecake, so
Cheesecake is fantastic as well.
oh man, so I'll have a slice, and then the rest of it is like looking at me, just saying like, "Don't leave us behind." And so then I have another one, and then and then I feel great for like an hour, and
Yeah,
then
of
it's
course.
2 p.m. and I can't drink enough coffee, and I'm just like, "Oh my gosh, like what that damn sugar crash." So you've inspired me. I have read stories about like triathletes who, for ethical reasons, were vegan. Um, I guess I'm not too prescriptive when it comes to okay, you do you, what works for you, eat wholesome and clean. But I guess when it comes to athletes, some can be, say, like vegan or vegetarian, others carnivore. I guess people's bodies can be different. Maybe they figure out what rhythm works for them. But how would you compare that for athletes, vegan versus carnivore?
It's a great question. I've got to be honest. I don't understand it, but what I have observed is that I know a former pro player who's a friend of mine who eats vegan and he's in incredible shape. I actually know two guys like that. One was high up in the tour. He
Uh-huh.
he was there playing Jimmy Connors in the '80s, and he's vegan. So it's so interesting because one of the guys that he trained is carnivore, and they're both incredibly healthy. So it seems to me like all that says to me is that if you're conscientious, maybe that's where the devil's in the details, right? Like just
Yeah.
by being conscientious and limiting your diet, and now you're starting to realize what you're putting into your body. It's
Uh-huh.
helpful no matter what diet you do. You
I
know what I
think
mean?
with meat, maybe it's a little simpler. Like you can just have a steak and be fine. And if you're going to eat vegan, you got to make sure you're getting all the different things from different places. So you can't just eat
Yeah, it's
one
harder to eat
thing.
vegan like in a restaurant too. I mean, it's
Uh,
like
yeah.
I don't know though, because I mean, they know the stores that work for them. I just think meat, like I'll give you the McDonald's example of carnivore. Like if you're like when I was driving between New York and Florida, I would stop to get something to eat. And I like Starbucks coffee when I'm driving. I feel like it's an easy way to get an espresso. I think their espresso beans are pretty good. And I
Mhm.
like McDonald's coffee. I think the illy beans are pretty good. So I'll stop in one of those too. Like they're also at every rest area, every stop. When
Yeah.
you go down 95, they're everywhere. It's very accessible.
Yeah.
So I realized you could just get a couple McDonald's burgers, just remove the bun, and you're getting a patty.
Hmm.
You're doing perfect carnivore. You're having coffee and meat. It's so simple. It's so cheap. Like so
Yeah.
that's where I think carnivore is very simple in that regard. Like you said, it's a small moat, but it's easy. Like I need that, to be honest. I mean, the same with, like, just to tie it into Bitcoin for a second. It's like the same thing with acquiring Bitcoin. Like I don't want to be, deciding when I buy based on emotion or anything. I just want to set DCA, have a,
Right.
have a system, and just have that operating in the background. Like I don't really want to be thinking about, like, what am I going to eat? Where am I going to eat? Like I do want it to be simple, because if I don't have it simple, I'm really not going to stick to it. And
Yeah.
this, even the push-up challenge, like what Bring Facts and these guys are doing, I think that's also what, like, kind of, I just started it, like, let me try it. But I think that's what spoke to me and said, it'll be a year now that I'm doing it, is
Mm.
that the only way to do it is to break it up into small pieces and to keep it simple. Because
Yeah.
otherwise, like, for example, I'll lose track of how many push-ups I did. I was writing it down at first, and then I realized I just got to set an amount I do. Like I do 15 tens, or I do 6 25s. Like it's got to be, and that way I don't really have to think about it. It's just something I do. Oh my God, I'm about to go to sleep. I didn't do my last 50. Like I jump down and I do them. So
Right.
it can't be complicated if I want it to be habitual. And
Yeah.
that's where all these kind of habits have gotten into the same kind of place, as far as simplifying things and then just letting it run almost like on autopilot.
My brain works the same way. If a system gets overly complicated, I just don't have a system, and or I
Right.
can't keep track of it all. I need my mode for this, and I need my mode for that. And if it gets too complicated, I start thinking too hard, and then I cheat, and then it all falls apart. Jack Mallers, about a month ago, I was listening to his podcast once, and he was traveling. I think he might have been
I think I watched that one. He had like the bag was breaking from McDonald's.
a bag of patties,
Yeah.
and
He's smart that way.
people would diss on him for like what McDonald's burgers, like he's like, hey, you're traveling.
No, they cook them properly too. It's everything
Yeah.
else around it is crap, but it's
Yeah.
like they cook the patties properly. There's no seed oils. There's no, it's good.
Yeah, a
And
beef
there's a few
patty.
stores now that are great. There's Steak and Shake, does tallow
Oh
fries.
yeah,
and
right,
stuff. There's
totally.
some good stuff, and they give you $5 back when you pay with the Lightning Network, which is pretty
Oh,
cool.
nice.
Yeah, I did that recently. It's real.
We don't have those around here, and I wish we did. When I travel somewhere, I've never actually been to a Steak and Shake, so I'm gonna have to seek one out. But
It's pretty good. It really is. I'm a
Yeah.
fan. Do you have In-N-Out by you?
there is not near us, but like west of us. Like I'm upriver a little ways, but like around Portland area, yeah, there
Gotcha.
is In-N-Out. Yeah,
In-N-Out's really good as well.
yeah, those are good. So okay, getting back to real estate for a moment, you started in New York, you started to diversify, spread out, multiple states, then
Yeah,
jurisdictions.
multiple states. We actually started in Pennsylvania, which was okay. It was a very good learning curve. But then, yeah, the laws, the lack of regulation made Florida super attractive. So we got into Florida. We were looking at buying just to tell you a little bit about like how I do it is I will be the one like running a deal and creating it, but I get investors mostly through my tennis network, but any which way.
Uh-huh.
And now we have a pretty good group of people. So what I was doing is in Jacksonville, which was in like 2019, I guess 2018 is when we started. 2018, 2019, 2020, it was really at a steep, like it was accelerating how much people liked the city. And some of the big podcasters were starting to invest here. So I think that was also bringing a lot of eyeballs to it.
Uh-huh.
So I was trying to look at different small units and put them together. So we were able to take a 4, a 5, and a 1 and put it into one piece. So we bought 10 units at once, which that was pretty much the deal that was life-changing, because that deal put me in a new position where I had. Let me just backtrack a second. To make that deal happen, we need financing. Even if I'm having investors coming, I need the bank to put the vast majority of the money down. I had no connections for that. So whenever I would go to a bank and say, hey, I have this deal in the works, I'd like to do this, they would say, it sounds great, but actually at first they wouldn't say anything. They would just say no. They would just not pick up the phone call, not respond to the email. However I contacted them, they were just ignoring me. Then after pitching like 20 or 30, I started to get people on the phone, but they would say, listen, you sound like a nice guy. It sounds like you know what you're talking about. The deal sounds reasonable. You just have no track record. We just don't work with people with no track record. So I wasn't really getting anywhere. So I just kept making those calls and those pitches. And then what happened is a friend introduced me to a banker, and they knew each other through church. And that's one of the benefits of Jacksonville is there's a lot of like little subgroups, especially with religion. So I got an introduction, and I called him and I spoke to him, and then we met, and he said, I would like to help you. So basically the introduction was the track record, because I still didn't have any track record. But, because of that, he introduced me to the person who now we work with all the time. So this was really like the entry to this job. Like it gave me an ability to make these deals happen that we didn't have previous to it. So
this opened up Florida for you.
It did. It opened up Florida. It opened up capital, and it really. That's why I say it's like the best deal so far, and the deal that started everything. Because now everything's based off of this. Because what we're doing is once we do one deal, we're able to refinance it. And this is one of the things that I think is really, it's really interesting for I think people who are younger and feel like housing maybe is passing them by. because it's really easy. Like especially with the people that I work with who are doing, tile work or, various jobs when we're rehabbing stuff, they want to buy houses, but they feel like they can't afford them. And I think you have to get some kind of creative way to finance them and get started. So what we were doing is we're taking the first deal, refinancing money out of it, and then putting that into the next deal. So that just starts like
a flywheel.
It starts a flywheel. And then the problem with that, and this is where Bitcoin comes in, is that sounds awesome on paper. Like you're like, oh, I'm using the system to my advantage. And I think historically that's true. But the problem is the asset itself, it has a ton of maintenance, and that's actually a depreciating force. So like you look at an old building and like, okay, today it might be good, but in 30 years, it's going to have no roof, no HVAC. Like there's a lot of things that go wrong with it, and it's expensive. If you fix it today, it's one price, but if you fix it in 30 years, it's infinitely more expensive. So, I mean, you're basically running a flywheel in the right direction on the investing side, but in the wrong direction on the maintenance side. So you have this depreciation fighting against you. So especially we're dealing with mostly older properties. I always felt like we're kind of chasing our own tail. So it's like we're successful on paper, but meanwhile, I can't afford fixing the air conditioner or something else. And that's where Bitcoin comes in, is we started to break off. We had the discipline to have a little bit of money in a reserve, but we didn't have it in a good reserve. We just had it sitting in cash in the bank. And that was a mistake.
So then Bitcoin changes the game for you. And I'd heard an interesting talk, years ago, but, after getting orange pilled on like the Sailor series and then listening to more and more Sailor stuff, he made, in one of his talks he was on, I can't remember what podcast it was, but there was one where he made this big, long talk on comparing Bitcoin as a property and like a hard, not just as money, but as a store of value, like a property, a store of energy, and comparing that to real estate. And he was laying out all these things about real estate, all the counterparty risks, some of which I was like peripherally aware of. But when he layered it all up, I'm like, oh man, yeah. I mean, you're beholden to so many factors, whether that's this, that, and the other, government, or a bad tenant or renter, or acts of God, and just natural depreciation and all these things. And I started to realize, oh, interesting. Like I've bought property before, and I've rented property, and part of it feels like, number go up feels good in a way, like, okay, I'm recouping and whatever.
It does.
And I also have thought about all the times I had to, like, literally randomly some plumbing emergency, or, oh, it's been 20 years now and that roof is like, do we fix it now? Or, on maintenance and all these things.
That's the interesting question to me too. Like when you're saying to yourself, do I fix it now? It's because you're aware of that it's going to be more expensive. Like you know that going in. You don't know exactly what the next couple of years inflation rate is going to be. And I mean, obviously the CPI lies to us all the time, but like you really, like, you're trying to hit a moving target, and that's where it's not in your favor. And that's where it's so different. If you could just take that money, put it into Bitcoin, and just like let it sit there, you're basically you're winning the future as opposed to losing the future. Like it's the one place where you really have a hole in the bucket and it's just leaking water out. You're able to like plug that up, and
like it gives a return in one hand, but you got to also keep feeding it back as well and managing it and all these things. Bring Facts actually manages a lot of properties, and he says he just got done replacing some carpet in one of his rentals. And it's one of those things, it's the kind of job that it can be good if you're also really capable and willing to work, where it's like, well, we just got to replace the flooring, or, well, someone moved out and you're looking around, cleaned up. Yeah, we got to paint, and you got to lean in and put in work. Investing in a property can also be a good return, but you're also working. You're working for it.
And to further that, we started doing the vacation rentals because there's a lot more money to be made. It's a much more active business though. So I mean, it's so much work. It's daily work. Like yesterday, I was there. We were doing a deep clean. We're cleaning the pool. Like we're doing a lot of stuff with our own hands and our own time, and it's worth it in the sense of you're making probably the most money you can with the property, but it's definitely incredibly active. And it's, it's not just active in terms of, getting the place clean and getting it prepared. It's also a lot of like, what are customers looking for? There's a lot of like abstract work as far as like positioning yourself properly and making it attractive. And then at some point we realized we're paying all these, travel agencies like Airbnb and VRBO. So we made our own website. We started to get direct bookings, but to do that, this was like a huge build out. I had to get, a CRM, and then every customer that comes in, now I'm reaching out to them saying, hey, you can book directly with me. We'll give you a discount. Then we added in lightning payment, 21% discount, like
nice.
Trying to hit. Yeah. So we're trying to hit all these different things to build our own business, because it's the same problem, which is there's so much counterparty risk, and it's the property dealing with the city and dealing with the other stuff, but it's also the fact that looking for guests, I have to go through somebody, Furnished Finder or Airbnb. So, I mean, when they change their pricing, they've changed my business. Like I wasn't at that meeting where they decided to do that. So I have no sovereignty in that. And that bothers me. When you're running a business, you really want it to be your own. So that's where this has been a big change. Like, I think we started doing like, first, it was just I was buying Bitcoin for myself, and then I was using it sometimes in real estate. And then I realized the company itself has to buy. That's a lot of Mike Saylor too. Just like hearing him say the companies that don't adjust are going to be left behind. It starts to get in your head like, yeah, he's right. So it's over a year now. We're doing it that way, and that's been great. I even set up that rent payments go directly into Strike and
cool.
Bitcoin and stuff. Yeah. It was like proof of concept at first. Like, can this be done? I didn't even know if it was possible, and then it's like, it's definitely possible. I mean, there's a lot of really good systems out there. Even Cash App. A lot of tenants pay by Cash App, and you can just move it into Bitcoin immediately.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. And, the short-term rentals can be lucrative, but also then you got to attend to every week or several times a week going in and cleaning up, fixing up, presenting it again and getting it ready. So then it's like, okay, well, hustle extra for that work, or have a property manager person do that job, but then you're paying them, and it's a little more overhead. But
I can't pay anybody right now. We don't have we're just not that big. It's got to be me.
Yeah, Bring Facts says he has renters pay on Cash App, less hurdles, straight to Bitcoin.
Yeah, it's actually really easy. So I mean, it's funny, like, because the other thing is, like, I'd love to tell a renter, hey, pay me in Bitcoin, use Strike, like, here's my thing. But like, the problem is, adoption is at the point where people sometimes think when you say Bitcoin, you're somehow scamming them. So you do have to worry about that. Like not among us, but there's the greater population out there. They're not necessarily ready for it. I think they know Cash App, so it's it's good to have that kind of like security. I don't even know that it really is more secure, but it
works.
It works.
The rails are there, I guess.
The rails are there, and you need things to be kind of like monkey proof when you're dealing with tenants. Like, any obstacle you create will be used against you. So I mean, it's
yeah, I can see that.
You do want things as smooth as possible.
Yeah, the check's in the mail. Oh, really? It didn't show up?
What's your address again? Are you in an apartment or a house? Like, just anything that is, any smoke screen will extrapolate.
I can only, I've felt that a bit in my life, and also I can only imagine when you're managing a lot of it. So now I just imagine that when it comes to incentives and governance and people that are in this kind of a business, it just seems like if you're paying attention at all, and unless you're in a total silo some way, or just have no sense of personal agency, or for whatever reason, you're not going anywhere, and this is just what it is. This is your life. Okay. But if you can compare New York to Florida, and then you see how those governments and the economies are managing themselves, you don't have to look too far ahead and be like, don't you see how this path will work well for economies and incentives and all the things, and create an economy, versus another one where we're going to dictate stuff and increase taxes and put all these controls on and regulate it to death. Seems like people would be like, yeah, I'm going to move. I mean, how does that sustain itself? I worry about New York slipping into like what California is going to be facing too, where they're just freaking broke and people move out. Well, we're going to tax the rich harder. Okay, well, bye-bye, rich people. I don't know.
I think that's a huge problem. I've tweeted about it a few times because I think, like, what's the chapter in the Jekyll Island book? It's like it's talking about the New York bailout from 1975. I'm going off the top of my head, I think it was a two
I've
billion.
got the book behind me somewhere, but yeah, I've
I
got that
believe it
book.
was a $2 billion bailout that New York received. So since then, that was 1975. So that's also the year I was born. It was actually even the month I was born. It was in October.
Oh,
So that bailout basically, when I grew up in New York was in just shambles. It was dangerous. It was like there were a lot of dead spots, and it just wasn't in good shape. And then later it got healthy, like in the late 90s, early 2000s, and I think now it's going back into what it was. So if history repeats itself, I would say they're going to be bankrupt, asking for a bailout pretty soon. But what's the
yeah,
amount going to be? It's not going to be 10 billion. It might be like we might see our first $1 trillion city bailout. Like
yeah,
numbers are going to be staggering. I don't know
yeah.
what they're going to be, but they're going to be.
California needs another $1 trillion, or New York needs another $1 trillion. And it's
Maybe
like,
they'll
okay,
group it and they'll say like, oh, if we lose this, the whole country is going to fall. They'll give us so much bullshit. They'll tell us it's about children or God knows what. But
yeah. Don't you care about people? It's like,
yeah, it is.
oh yeah, but
So,
yeah,
but I mean, I'm super curious. I'd like to try to estimate that number. So, like, if it's assuming that the dollar has devalued as much as it has from 75 to 2026, I think it's in the $1 trillion range what they're going to ask for.
I can see it.
So, I mean, it's gonna absolutely draw a new line in the sand. It's going to make a new baseline. It's going to be intense.
Yeah. So big picture, and I just feel like things are spring loaded with tension that are kind of rupturing now with war, but spending that money, got to print that money. Meanwhile, the people demand the social programs, and politicians can't do anything but make promises. So they print, 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 print. I feel like Bitcoin is going to emerge as like, okay, here's a safe haven. Even real estate is vulnerable to like stuff.
Well, real
I
estate's
feel like
vulnerable. That's one of my
Bitcoin,
concerns. I think it's vulnerable. I think Bitcoin is definitely the clear winner in the future. I can't.
yeah,
I mean, what do I know? Obviously, but I can't see it any other way. It's the only one with the sovereignty. Like it's just
yeah.
it's such a big difference. And
And
so
people may start, whether it's individuals or like large money, they're going to start like putting a little in or hedging or whatever, treating it like a trade or a tech stock or something that currently they see it as on risk perhaps, but then they leave it in. And over time with performance, they'll say, oh, that was a lot less work for a lot better math. And the rules haven't changed and it still works. And meanwhile, we're dealing with all this other game casino over here. I just feel like there's going to be a shift, and like Bitcoin's time has not even come. There's things that have started, some, inroads and changes, but it's still just barely, hasn't even hardly started. Like it's going to
hasn't really
come.
started.
Yeah. Still early.
I mean,
So
it's awesome what you said about like the rules changing, because I think that that's one problem in our society right now, is that the rules seem to be changing a little bit faster. Like those goalposts keep moving, and the rate at which they're moving is accelerating, which I think like you see like so much poly market, like people are trying to make money 100 ways. And I mean, I get it, especially young people, like they're just like, I'm out of options. I need something to hustle. But I think when they see a store of value that doesn't have moving goalposts performing, I think that's when it starts to speak to itself, and it's basically self-supporting. But the problem is also what you were saying, is that I understand why people are fed up. Like not to get into like the politics of is it red or blue, but just there's a lot of people are unsatisfied. So I mean, there's like you said, it's like a spring loaded. Like there's some serious tension out there. I mean, like that's got to go somewhere. Like that energy doesn't just disappear. So.
Well, then there's that, there's talk about the idea of like the fourth turning, if you will. If you heard of the fourth turning. So, and cyclically, you can kind of see those patterns where there is this huge spring-loaded tension that in a fourth turning where there's, like an increasing demand for control by people of like, things need to start making sense again. even as we're divided, but there's not a lot of provision for, like, there is not a lot of, say, law and order, or you see fraud and waste and abuse everywhere. And there's this big divide, this big gap, creating this tension in supply and demand for control in a society and in economies. And so the fourth turning part, it's like it's always resulted in war. And so what's going on in Iran, I just sort of imagine this long, protracted geopolitical, there's a lot to it, but between world reserve currency stuff with the dollar and stable coins in that game, and on the other side, BRICS and the gold trades and China and Russia's game, and these collisions. And meanwhile, Bitcoin just simply continues to work. And I think starts to realign the system, or becomes like a go-to solution of like, oh, this simply remains as a neutral unit of account and store of value. So
yeah, and ledger, because I mean, you can't have all this fraud and stuff. I mean, that's the problem, is we have not had a good ledger. I mean, we've proven that we don't we don't account properly. Like, we know that for a fact, right? So I mean,
we can't even audit swaths of the government. Like, where did this money go?
We can't audit the gold. Like, there's this, every time we talk about auditing, we fail. So I mean, it's like, so that's the proof's in the pudding. The ledger doesn't exist, doesn't work, doesn't functions. Something's wrong. We know that. So
you've built up a good real estate, I'll call it a citadel, but you've got the flywheel spun up, you got your processes, and all the business is good. Do you see yourself, so now as you build up your Bitcoin plan, do you see it shifting over time later, where you might shift away from real estate more and just go more all in Bitcoin? Or
yeah, I mean, it's definitely possible. I mean, the way it is right now, I think, is you kind of have like the long-term kind of stability. I don't know if that's even the right word, because obviously we know why it's not totally stable, but the stability of real estate with some of the volatility of Bitcoin, like, just have the quicker growth. And it's like, they're kind of interesting opposites, in that it's like one is corporeal and the other one is digital. And I think it's kind of a good synergy. But in terms of, I mean, this just kind of happened, to me, among myself in some ways, is I just got so much more excited about Bitcoin and so much less excited about real estate. And it takes so much effort to make these deals. So like, I'm not sure I'll make a big, like, I have plans for what would be the biggest deal so far, and I'm not sure it'll ever happen, because I feel like it's a lot of work for a lot of risk for maybe not the reward that we're looking for. So like, why not take that same energy and that same capital and put it into something that's simpler? Like, that's what I was telling you earlier, is like, simple has always worked for me. It seems more repeatable, and it seems like it's something that you can just kind of count on and automate. Why not do that? Like, we've built that up, so maybe that's where our energies and focus will go. But as of right now, I just want to kind of keep doing what we're doing, if that makes sense. It's like,
sure, it's working. And like, if you were just stuck in New York, it might be like, this makes less and less sense, or it's more work and regulation than what we get. Whereas Florida helps make it worth it. And also you've got inroads there, and we're humans. So I mean, like, tangible assets do mean something. People do need housing. We need quality housing, and there's a market.
That's what I wanted to say on the show, is that I feel like when I see some of the Bitcoiners kind of shitting on real estate, that concerns me, because like, people are like, oh, you should rent, you shouldn't buy a house. Like, I don't know about that, because I mean, I understand what they're saying. I mean, obviously you're not putting a ton of money down. You're able to invest that money in Bitcoin. It does make sense from like an ROI standpoint, assuming that Bitcoin does what we think it's going to do. I grasp that. There's no debating that. But the peace of mind of knowing you own your house and you don't have to worry about that, there's something very like, it's a true accomplishment. Like what you're saying, we like tangible assets. We like knowing we own something. We like knowing like this piece of, even like in high school, like you'd sit on a certain corner, like with your friends, you're like, this is my corner, this is my bit of sidewalk. Like, you like that, right? Like, you feel comfortable with that. And I think the problem is with the fiat system and the fact that we're mortgaged to, you know, to these crazy lengths. I think that's kind of made it feel for a lot of people like, well, I don't really own it. Somebody else owns it. The bank owns it. The government owns it. And that kind of
Right.
ownership and sovereignty has been taken away from us. But I also think that's partly our responsibility to build the creativity that makes the deal happen. This is where
Right.
I'm kind of like a deal maker. So like, in other words, I'll give you an example. Like it might make sense for somebody who's who's doing like, say they're working in a, like some kind of like blue collar thing, like they're working, making tiles or cabinetry or something. Like these are the kind of people that I interact with a lot when we're doing rehabs. So you might be like 20 years old, 22 years old, and you're like, you're thinking of getting married, you're thinking of having a house and stuff, but it just seems impossible. But if they use their skill set and find a house that's in bad shape, or especially if there's like a mother-daughter or a carriage house or like some kind of ADU, and then they house hack it where they live in one part, live in the smaller part, and rent
Uh-huh.
out the bigger part. Like now they've used the financing to go from a negative to a positive, where they're using it to offset the payments and then take control of it, where maybe in 10, 15 years, they can pay off the entire mortgage.
Right.
20 years. It's hard to say, but in other words, their skill set, they're able to take something that's older, make it nicer, make it more valuable, rent it out to somebody else. Then after they pay down the bulk of the mortgage, they get wealthier. 10 years have passed, 15 years have passed, they take it over. I know a
Yeah.
ton of boomers who did that in Brooklyn, like in Park Slope and areas that now are super wealthy. They weren't though when they bought the houses. They did
Uh,
that by building it themselves. They were patching holes in the ceiling and fixing brick on the brownstone, and like like they were doing the work to make that happen. So
mhm.
I worry that when we over shit on real estate, we're not having that kind of creativity, which can work. And the
Yeah.
advantage for today's generation is what I was talking about before, is that they can have Bitcoin the whole way. Like you have these companies doing Bitcoin line of credit. You can just put Bitcoin in an account as a reserve. Like there's a lot of ways to still have Bitcoin. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I
We're not,
think there's
I
a
mean, very
merge
few.
there. It doesn't have to be like this separate thing.
Yeah, as far as, being a human living on this planet, we walk on the ground and we got to have shelter. And ultimately, really, very few of us are nomads. I mean, you live in a house, or if you're going to have a family, you make some long-term plans.
For sure.
And it wasn't until I owned my first house that I realized, like, oh, instead of just calling the landlord, yeah, I got a problem, or someone else fix this for me, and it's not really mine. Those can create incentives of things being temporary, and you don't have the responsibility over it. Once I had a house, I was like, oh, I got to fix or figure out the plumbing, or something electrical, or something in the wall, or whatever.
It's a
It
lot
taught it,
too.
it taught me how to do stuff, fix stuff, or problem solve. And as I invested in it, it was mine. And so
Yeah.
you put in that work, you put in that energy and time and construction, and then you directly benefit. You're building your nest, and then whether you ultimately stay there really long term or whatever, you've built it up for yourself. And there is something real to that. It's real estate that way. So yeah, when you do own it, it's definitely a skill stack that is good for people to have. So maybe it's not that, oh, I'm going to start getting into real estate and own a bunch of properties. Now that'll teach you more stuff like it has you. Maybe you stick to the one house, but everyone lives probably in a house, right? So yeah, it's really just core to people and living, and people need houses and people need quality houses. So whether it's a landlord or homeowners themselves, these are kinds of like living skills that we need to be able to do well and ultimately have housing and quality housing. So who's going to own those and who's going to manage those? Um,
I
you
mean,
know,
also you worry that it's going to be the big companies like the BlackRocks and stuff that own all
oh
these
yeah,
family homes. So I mean, that's not that's not great either. 'Cause they tend to use. I mean, unfortunately, in this business can be a really slimy business. There are some really bad property managers who don't care a lot about people, and like, unfortunately, they get hired by the big companies usually. Like
uh-huh,
a small mom and pop won't hire a a company that doesn't have great integrity and stuff. A big
Uh-huh.
company might not be so smart. They might not, they might not
Yeah.
have quality control, to put it plainly, which is unfortunate,
Trump said something about that not too long ago about putting limits on large corporations owning so many or taking out certain loans for so many houses and things like that. So because basically to keep home ownership with families that need them or people that need them.
I think he's right about that in the sense of what happens if you have, because it happened in Jacksonville. You had a couple large companies bought a lot of homes, and they also built to rent. They did these entire communities, and that changed the price, and that made it more unaffordable for people who would have been able to buy. It raised, because they're buying in bulk, assuming they're going to rent it back to you anyway. So it doesn't matter, and they have these big loans that there's no way that a single landlord can compete with that, and there's no way that a new home buyer can compete with that. So
I see. Yeah.
I think that's his goal. I don't know enough about it to know if it will work. That's a different problem.
Well, big money talks, and who greases the gears in politics there. It's hard to know how it plays out because it sounds good and right, but kind of like when Besant talks about the economy and what's going to float things and make sense. And when I look at it, I just think, the whole system is going to sorely struggle, and they got to print the money. And it's not like, well, AI will come in and keep our GDP up, or
they love saying AI is going to solve everything.
Yeah.
But then everything I hear just makes me think, okay, they're printing. Like
They got to print money. Yeah, they have to.
All I hear when they speak. It's like.
So So I mean, I don't feel optimistic about fiat whatsoever, but I think skills and Bitcoin are solid to have, and real estate having a slice in people's life simply because you live in homes makes a lot of sense. Bringing me to lifestyle, we talked about home ownership and business and finance and Bitcoin, carnivore. Now, health generally, fitness. How long have you played tennis? Has it been part of your life, your whole life?
Forever. My mom played, and then when I was probably like 4 or 5, I picked up a racket and started playing. And then I wasn't really that into it. It's one of those things, and I see it with young kids. Like talented players tend to burn out. I was super into making friends and playing music and doing other stuff when I was in high school, and I kind of put it a little bit aside. I played, but not as seriously. And then later in life, I got really into it again, like not far after, like, so probably at like maybe 20 to 25 years old, I started to play a lot again. And then when I was a little bit older, it was probably in my 40s, I got asked to coach, which was really like fortunate. It was like right place, right time kind of thing.
That can be very rewarding.
It was unbelievable. It was incredibly fun, and it opened up it reopened my passion for it. And it made me, because I thought I'm not really the perfect coach because I'm not that talented of a player. It's not that I was on the pro tour or something, you know what I mean? So it's not that you're taking my talent. You're more like picking my brain. So I thought a lot of what I was giving, I was coaching college kids, and college kids 14-year-olds and 12-year-olds seem the same way. They seem like they've got a lot under control and they know what they're doing, but then they'll have trouble asking a professor to miss a class because they're going to have a match. Like that conversation.
Being organized, yeah.
Yeah, being organized, knowing to say that in other words, if you do that last minute, it's rude, and the professor might say no. If you do it beforehand, it's polite, and you'll pretty much coerce the professor to do what you want. But like knowing that when is appropriate and stuff, there's a skill to all of that. So I felt like that was a lot of like why I was there. I was there for tennis, but
it's not just the sport and the skill. It's also integrating that into a student's relationship with the rest of their life. So
yeah, because a lot of these students were not quite, for example, one of the students who became the captain of the team, when we started with him, he was very shy, and I relate to that because I'm an introvert at heart. I solve problems by sitting, facing the wall and thinking. Like I don't
cerebral. Yeah.
So I related to him very easily. And we had a match. It was a very weird match. We were indoors and it was carpet. You very rarely play on carpet anymore. It's like the last person to win a tournament on carpet is Roger Federer. It doesn't
Oh.
exist on the Pro Tour anymore. And he was playing on it's very fast, kind of like skiddy surface, and he was getting very frustrated. He's our best player. And at some point he came over. The way it works in college is I can stand on the court. I could touch you, like there's no rules of no coaching. I can yell at you. I can do whatever. So he was very close to me, and I could see it. He was upset. Like he was about to cry. And I grabbed him and hugged him, but I was also like kind of yelling at him. Like I was telling him, don't fucking hold back. I want you to miss every fucking ball. I want you to hit the back wall. I want you to fucking go for every shot. I want to hear your racket like a shotgun. I don't care if the ball goes in. I just want to hear you try your hardest. And I was like yelling at him. And then he started really crying. And then we separated, and he went on to play an incredible match where he just went for everything. He was free, and you could hear the racket. Like you could actually hear the sound of the ball like a shotgun. And
he broke through a barrier. Yeah.
He broke through a barrier, and you could hear it because it was echoing because of the weird surface and situation. So it was really cool, and it got a lot of people's attention. So a lot of people started to clap, and a lot of people started to get behind him. And
Awesome.
that was like kind of like his emerging as the captain. It was really cool to just be
Being
a
a
part
coach.
of that,
And I've raised my share of kids, and whether it was, Boy Scouts or soccer, T-ball and the things, it's so rewarding as a parent or a coach. But kids, I tell you, it changes kids' lives. It's not just the sport and the fitness; it's their relationship with leadership and themselves and a team. It's a whole social challenge and growth process that it's so core to what kids need and what people need generally. But what you're doing there is so important for people.
I need it
It's
too.
like it can be high in discipline, but also high in support. And so it's just so motivating, and it teaches them skills that apply throughout their life in whatever they do.
Yeah, I think it goes back to what we were talking about before, which is basic problem solving. Like in other words, they're learning how to problem solve. The tennis is cool that way too because there's no clock. So in other words,
Right.
you can problem solve until the last bounce, which is actually really freeing just to know you may lose. It's not about winning or losing. It's just you get to keep solving. You get to keep trying. You get one more shot, one more shot, one more shot. And there's something very cool about that. Like you said before, you fall down 8 times, but you get up 9.
Yeah.
Tennis is always proving that to you, which is really cool.
Yeah.
You're rewarded for being kind of like, they call it mentally tough. I don't know if that's the right word for it, but like you're rewarded for being mentally tough by just trying one more time, which is super, super cool. Because you then take that into becoming a doctor, into running a business, into being a lawyer, like whatever they're also. I mean, I was lucky. I was in a school where the kids were pretty smart. So they had nice futures. It was mostly doctors, like pre-med and lawyers. So I got to see them really like blossom as people, but I saw that problem solving skill. One was an artist. Like I saw him just solving in a very like poetic way about going about it.
That's awesome. And then the feeling you have, over time when they've grown up and gone on their way, and that you contributed to things that they became, and they remember that too. There's that relationship, that strong relationship. It's so deep. I mean, even spiritual, but it's just very important for as humans go.
It really is, because I still talk to some of them. Like it's years ago. Like in other words, we got shut down in COVID. So 2020 was 2019 was our last season. So that's 7 years ago. And, we're still saying happy birthday and Merry Christmas and stuff. Like it's funny. And I think that's because like they taught me something and I taught them something. They definitely taught me something as well, because, we're in these long, bus rides. I'm the one driving, and maybe driving 2.5 hours going like up into the mountains in New York. And, they're asking me, hey, have you ever heard of, I don't even know like who it is. Like there were some hip hop guys and they want to put the music on. Yes, actually, but it was really fun to like hear them singing along and stuff. And then you're like, all right, I like this song too, and
Keeping your finger on the pulse of what kids are into these days. And I know
I can't even remember it. Like that's how much like I'm certainly not on that pulse, but
yeah, I'm a year younger than you. I'm approaching 50, but and as I raise young, I've got a kid. My oldest is 21 and my youngest is 4.
Oh, wow.
But anyway,
I have a big
second
gap.
chapter.
Funny.
So, a range of kids, but even, and so then with my 12-year-old, stuff that he's into, or he's listening to music, and or like the words they'll be using or the style of things, and it's like, wow, I feel old sometimes. But I'm
Does he
staying
use Discord by any chance?
on Discord.
Yeah.
I'm not on Discord really myself. No.
My son uses Discord, and I sometimes just like we share the computer. Sometimes I see their conversations, and I'm like, oh my god! And I know we were filthy as 12-year-olds as well, but I think it's gotten worse.
Oh boy. Maybe sometimes I don't want to know, maybe, but and they'll grow up, they'll be fine. I can't be controlling.
No, and they have like a shield to it as well. Like they have certain skill set because they're exposed to tech coming at them faster, and info coming at them faster.
Yeah.
Better traders of information, and vice versa. The people older than us, they can't differentiate fact from fiction on Facebook.
Right.
So it's like,
yeah,
we all have to deal with that.
Yeah. So it helps me maintain my mental flexibility as the young kids are just completely mentally flexible and like pivoting. So I played a little tennis. I can't say I was ever good or certainly not competitive, but I haven't played much. So as it comes to tennis, your feed lately, and I'll bring it to screen here, but you have had a lot of tennis on your feed because there's a lot of competitions going on. Basically, what are some highlights of what's going on in tennis lately? What's the drama in tennis?
That one, this is the big drama. This one cracked me up because you have on the top right is Mira Andreeva, who basically was cursing out the crowd. She lost, and I guess it was like a kind of like crybaby, sore loser kind of thing.
Oh boy!
And she was telling the crowd like "fuck you all" and stuff. And then you see the woman in white. She's just like clutching her pearls. She actually does clutch at her necklace, which just cracked me up. I don't know if it's a video, but she actually grabs at the necklace like she's absolutely clutching her pearls. Oh, and then the girl who wins is obviously their friends, and she's just like, oh no,
So historically, and we were talking offline a little bit about that, where my thought of what tennis was, its origins and how it was like a gentlemanly, gentle lady sport and lots of good manners and sportsmanship and things. And then I remember in the 80s, John McEnroe would have some tantrums, and that was like but it got attention and interest.
Oh, he was a rock star, absolute rock star. He still is.
And yeah, great athlete. And so now today, and maybe it's culture, what people are interested in, but the energy has changed, or it's more competitive, and the audience is maybe more involved.
It's also more international. I think you have more different cultures coming in, so you have like a little bit more. I look at that. Yeah, that's awesome.
Oh, there's I
like McEnroe too. We're about the same age. I love McEnroe. I've also met him in person a couple times, and he is absolutely hilarious in person.
Yeah.
He's super cool to deal with, super cool to talk to. He does a lot of coaching in New York for different groups too. It's like, so we were part of like a co-op essentially, where we would train people. Most of the courts tend to be in inner city spots. So it made sense to coach kids who are local to the courts. And he's really big on that. He has a lot of programs and stuff that do that. He's, the 80s tennis that was it. Like you would yell about the line calling and try to rough up the referee and influence the matches. Like Connors and McEnroe were really good at that.
Because refs can be wrong or make bad calls, and then
they're wrong all the time. I know a couple guys from growing up with it. They went into that. I know a chair umpire now, and he was telling me they only are right about 80% of the time. I mean, he's exaggerating to make a point, but it's
there you go. Look at that.
Oh yes, that's Bublik. Just absolutely. I mean, he's an absolute clown on the court. He's incredibly talented, and he's pretty fiery, and he really smashed a racket. I got to see 2 weeks ago because of my son. I was at a local tournament in Jacksonville where a pro, I'm not going to say who it was, but a pro was playing a high school kid, and the high school kid was giving it to the pro. He won the second set pretty handily, and the pro was smashing the racket.
Oh wow!
Because basically all of us were rooting for the kid because we all know the kid.
Uh-huh.
He was like against the kid. He was against, it was windy that day. He was against the wind, the kid, the audience. He was against everybody. And I saw him smash like the rackets exploding into a bunch of pieces. So there are racket smashes. I've never smashed a racket. I don't know. It's something about the way
Like
I
a
was
rock star smashing his guitar.
Yeah.
Yeah, here's that video of the drama. So is the culture changing, or just the energy and the interest in the sport changing? Is it I don't
Yeah,
want
I
to
think so. To the good, I think the athletes are way more athletic, and I think their longevity is better. I think, unfortunately, there's a little bit of a problem where I think maybe, like one thing I noticed from this tournament so far, this is Indian Wells, which is considered probably the best tournament in America that's not the U.S. Open,
uh-huh.
and it hasn't had great fanfare. It's been like there's two stadiums where you need to pay for entrance to a ticket. You needed to pay for a ticket to enter. And Stadium 2 has been pretty empty, which is not a good sign. So like, there's definitely, tennis has some issues. I think they may be juicing their numbers a little bit, because they keep saying they're having the best attendance ever, but when you look around, you don't see it.
Yeah, because the sportsmanship, the athleticism, the drama is definitely increased. And
yeah, like he's a great ambassador for the sport. He's really interesting, and he's got, so just, you're catching my eye. I usually try to show one of the women who tend to be pretty good looking.
She's a tennis player.
Yeah, and are incredibly athletic. So I try to just say, like, tennis athletes are the best athletes in the world.
Hello. Yeah.
One of my daily posts that I do.
Yeah.
So I try to do the thirst trap. I want to get followers.
Yeah.
And guys too. There was Koboli recently. He ripped his shirt off after he won the Davis Cup, which is where you're playing for your country. That was a pretty good one. I think tennis is healthy, but there's definitely there are some issues. I think maybe, and I'll bring this back to Bitcoin in a second. I think there's some issues with the people that run the tournaments don't really know people, and they don't really know tennis. And I think you could say that for the banks too. Like I was telling you, I was introduced to the vice president of a bank who did our loans from the beginning. I asked her one time, that they work for a board of directors. I asked her, how come you're not on the board? Like, you have every skill set, you run the entire bank, all the deals go through you. And she was like, that's the last thing I would want to do. I would never want to be on the board. I don't want to be part of bureaucracy. I don't want to be answering to anybody. Like, and I was saying, see, that's the issue, is that the person who's probably most qualified doesn't want the job. And then the people who want that job are just power hungry. They don't even understand the job. So the people controlling the bank are not even the people who are experts.
I'll hear talk about like the fiatization of sports, where like in Europe or England, football clubs where
it's big money,
big money. And so you have like a company that buys a team and then does their thing for a business, but then maybe the team or the athletes suffer because they don't have that organic sport feel of it, maybe like applying business math to a sport versus other clubs that grow organically and maybe they're not always the top performer. They can't afford the draft athletes or whatever, but sports can be like that and maybe you see it with kids, but like with my kids, it's like at a small level, it's just sportsmanship and skill and you're learning and it's small. And then the higher and higher you go up in competition, enter, say, money or management organization, and sports can get affected by like fiat incentives, I guess, so.
No, definitely. I mean, the money aspect is part of it. One thing that I think is really cool about tennis in a kind of like you said, like before the fiat gets involved, like just two people playing on court, is that you're dependent on each other. Like, in other words, if you and I go out and play, you're calling my balls, I'm calling your balls. We're in a relationship. We're in a natural cooperative. We have to be cooperating with each other to even play competitively, which is very interesting. So then when you go to the higher level where money's involved, and then you like, unfortunately, I saw this in college a lot, is people cheat. Cheating becomes a real thing.
It's a competitive strategy, I guess.
It's a strategy, unfortunately. Yeah. So, I mean, it's such a shame, because you see the motivations change, like they're more interested in winning than in being a good competitive person and having sportsmanship and being cooperative and like all these things that got them into the sport just went out the window. So I mean,
That's what'll drive me crazy about, soccer or European football is like when they do the flop or they get pushed and they fall down and hold their knee and roll until the ref does something.
The NBA does it too, though. So I mean,
and then now, yeah, the basketball, and it's just like, oh, I mean, I guess it's a strategy, but it's not fun sportsmanship. And then, and it can short circuit like a quality game for sure, but it's a strategy. And so so here's a parallel with Bitcoin, is that those kinds of strategies that can work in like fiat mindset, like, yeah, you can push that rule or break that rule and get away with it. And I guess you can keep doing that too. Bitcoin, it'd be like with Bitcoin, it'd be like, you can't foul anymore. There is not that allowance. You can't foul. So you if you're going to play, you have to play, and you can't cross the line or foul, or like the protocol knows when it's in and when it's out, and you can't break the rule. Bitcoin fixes the rules, so you can't play those games. And so then the sport has to adjust and compete with the new rules. So Bitcoin fixes money with rules. Sports are ultimately humans, but anyway, so yeah. But I mean, I love watching the games, but when it gets to be like, okay, like in basketball, if it's the 3-point shots and fouls and flopping all the time, it's like, well, this is different. So
yeah, I think there's an integrity issue, right? Like, I mean, we know when we're being bullshitted. So I mean, whether it's an athlete or a government or a banker or whoever, it's like you're kind of onto it.
Yeah. Man, this has been a great conversation, and little as I know about tennis, anything else in the tennis world that's happening right now that's of interest, that if you were just to say, hey, I want to talk about something in the tennis world right now, what's happening lately?
I think that's really it. Just like the game is moving along and modernizing. One thing that's happening, I'll just like I'll plug a friend's idea here. One thing that's happening in Florida, which I think may take into the country across all the states at some point, is right now it's just Florida, Georgia, is they're doing a league where right now the way tennis works is you either make the tour or you don't. It's like pretty much like total success or no success. There's no like middle ground. So like players who are struggling, they'll try to acquire points by playing smaller tournaments, but it's very costly. It's very hard to do. So what he's doing is he's building a local league that's essentially like a team tennis league, where there'll be clubs and then players out of college and stuff can be drafted. They're doing the first draft this year in Miami.
Oh, that's cool.
That's kind of an interesting thing from like a more of like a structural standpoint, because that would create that players, like right now, if I want to be a college player, I'm either going to go into the pro tour and try to make it, or I'm going to go into, real estate after. And which a lot of kids ask me, a lot of kids pick my brain. They're like, what do you do that you're able to be around in the daytime looking at tennis courts? And I'm like, oh, I'm in real estate. I have a flexible schedule. And so then like I'll explain my life to them a little bit. And then they're like, oh, they get super interested. Like, so like they're smart people.
They start thinking about, life, career goals, or
they're thinking about life all the way.
Yeah.
It's amazing how many people they're super, because they're hardworking. They're super conscientious about their diet. They're super conscientious about money. They're super conscientious about language skills. They're an interesting group of people, no doubt. It's a weird world to want to be a tennis player. So they have certain skill set for sure. And it
must be just so fun and rewarding to be able to do that and be immersed with not just young people. I mean, there's parents involved as well, but the relationships, the sportsmanship, the skills, and integrating it all. It sounds like a great life. You've figured out a lot in your life.
No, there's still plenty of problems. Don't worry.
Yeah, everyone's got problems. But the
funny thing is, I was like thinking about this when I'm like just preparing my thoughts a little bit, is like, I'm telling you a lot of the positives. Like,
okay.
when I told you like the deferred maintenance for real estate, for example, like things are getting more expensive to fix, it's really concerning. And then like that really stresses me out, like on a kind of day-to-day level, like or like we have a long-term solution for it, but it's not an immediate solution for one thing, because it's going to take some time sitting on these reserves. But I'll give you an example. I think this maybe explains it better. One of the properties is well over 100 years old, and there was all kinds of like palm trees and stuff, and we just like pulled them away, and we realized under the palm trees there was a fountain, a big fountain too, like maybe 20 feet one way and 10 feet the other way. But it was all buried, because what happened is, as people were selling the property and changing hands, nobody maintained it. It's hard to maintain, so it just went into total disrepair. So what's interesting is, for me to actually make that a fountain again would cost orders of magnitude more money than it cost to build, like maybe 200 times more money, which is so interesting because it was built so long ago. Like, even getting bricks now is more expensive, and like it was built of brick, and like now it's leaking, it doesn't hold the water. So like it would take a lot of work to fix it. But the problem is with the fiat system is that it's so expensive to make that work now, so it's like, like the very thing is also its problem. Like, I don't know if I'm articulating that well, but it's like the fact that this thing is so beautiful and has this historical character, it has a bigger gap to when it was built, which makes it all that much more expensive. So like, really, if you're using all fiat, you'll just never fix it. It's just like, we'll sell to somebody who will sell, and it'll never get fixed. It'll just defer and defer and defer. The maintenance will never get done. And that's kind of the fiat system. And it's built for transactions, and it's built to make that happen, unfortunately. And then like, who gets wealthy out of it is the ones making the loan, printing the money.
Yeah, you can see old construction or old craftsmanship that was built solidly and well to stand the test of time. But then over time, without maintenance, I mean, nowadays it's like, well, like people will, there's a little house on it or whatever, and they buy a property, and it's like, it's cheaper to just demolish the whole thing and build new than to like rebuild and try to its fabric as it was, build it what it was.
It's a shame too, because it's a lot of times you're seeing like beautiful old bay windows, and then instead you're getting the new modern, like, Anderson window. And, not that there's anything wrong with it, but it just doesn't have the charm of something that's got like an arch over it or something. Like it's a different ball game. And like that fountain, I think it's kind of the shape of an eye. It looks like a all-seeing eye. So I think it was originally built by Freemasons. So like, you'll never see that kind of like masonry today. If we built that fresh, we'd never build it as nicely.
Interesting.
So the only way to fix it really is to have the Bitcoin grow, and then just start using it, like maybe loaning against it or actually selling some. Not that I would ever want to sell, but to fix that. Like, that's the only way where that's even viable financially, it's really crazy that like that's how broken our system is, that otherwise it's impossible.
Yeah. So you're still evaluating whether to rehabilitate the thing, or do you know?
So that, I think, as much as my hands can do it, I'll rehabilitate. But I might get blocked with my skill set not being great enough for that. I've never built a fountain.
It's kind of a commitment. I imagine, it could get to where like, well, are you going to like pull all the bricks out and reseal it, or whatever, clay, or a layer, and then put all the bricks back in, or that'd be a project, but it could be a project of passion.
Yeah. I got to put a picture of it on X at some point so people can see it, because there's a lot of these guys are very handy. Somebody might have like a solution that I haven't thought of.
Yeah. Sometimes, it's like, okay, it's doable. It's just a matter of time and energy, or just money, but
some combo, right? It's energy one way or another.
Energy, store of energy. So I will bring people to your X feed. That's how I found you, and just kind of reached out to you quasi randomly, because I knew you're on the Bitcoin Army, and I saw your feed. And as I was going through it, I was like, you know what? You are very prolific. You're entertaining. You're engaging. You've got an interesting feed, and I liked it. And I thought, you know what? This person has a story to tell. And I didn't know your name. I just knew your handle. And I said, hey, I want to have you on the podcast.
I feel like I'm such a regular guy. Like, you've had some incredible guests on. So, but I think that's cool too. Like, it's a simple Bitcoins for so many different approaches. So
totally. It's kind of like by the plebs for the plebs. I like being able to have anyone on who's willing, and if they're core based in Bitcoin, that's a start. And there's just so many stories to tell. And then, yeah, I mean, wherever I can, if there's somebody higher profile, certainly love to have them too. But as an up and coming thing, there's just so many, like say, members of the Bitcoin army that's just like, hey, we might go into left field or maybe into right field, but I'm good for it. It's just I want to have it out there and connect and share and make it fun.
Great.
So
it's absolutely great.
You can be found at Yeticus Maxi. You can search for Yeticus Maximus, find you there. Is there any other ways that people might connect to you, or that you're online somewhere that you want to share?
There's also, I think it's the same handle on YouTube. I have a YouTube channel, but I really don't use it too much. I like X. I think X is great. Like one of the things I was going to tell you is like, I'm not selling anything, or like, there's no, I thought about explaining real estate as like a way to help people, but I just think if you want to ask me a question, just DM me. I'll happy to answer.
Let me, I think I got to put this in right.
So what I was going to tell you is I had both accounts under my name, but then I told you that person doxed me. So I'm like, maybe I shouldn't put that in.
Oh yeah. That's a story. If you want to tell that story, some over tennis too.
Oh yeah. It was like an innocuous comment I made. I said like, I like Federer more than Djokovic or something. And I got this guy, like he looked me up and he doxed me with all my personal information. And I mean, obviously some of it's out there as well, but I just can't believe that it's like people get so hostile over like just nothing things. That could be actually, just to tie it into the ills of fiat, it could be a better. And then they get really, really upset. Like that's one other problem in tennis these days. You have a lot of bettors threatening the players. The players get
really?
DMs, and if you win this match, I'm going to kill your family and stuff like that. You're getting crazy stuff.
Oh, crazy brother. Yeah, we were talking about poly market and the gambling and sports. Well, like boxing is so notorious for it. Is like, at one level, you'd think obviously the players want to win, but then you get money involved, and they're like, all you got to do is take a punch and lay and be like, because you're hurting anyway. So yeah. Anyway, yeah, crazy. Well, I didn't find you on YouTube, but maybe I wasn't searching right. But
I can put it on my X feed too if people want to do that. It might be under my name still. Yeah, as you can see, I'm pretty bad about that.
Let's see.
Don't worry about that. X is the best way anyway. I love X. I think it's really, really a good way
X
to talk
has
to people.
connected us very well. I've enjoyed, between the Bitcoin army and there's an algorithm that gives you a feed that sometimes I got to like break out of and go seek, but it works pretty nicely. So go find him at Yeticus Maxi on X. Has got a great feed, fun follow, part of the Bitcoin army. If you're not a member of the Bitcoin army and you're a Bitcoiner, join the Bitcoin army. I'll bring that up here. You can search for the Bitcoin army community. Lots of spaces and lots of great members and posts and people contributing and doing their own thing, going out there and doing things and sharing their stories. And that's, this podcast is about that, sharing as Bitcoiners United, just sharing each other's pleb stories. So it's all great. Bring Facts says great conversation. Thanks for listening, Bring Facts.
Thanks for listening.
Fun having you. With that, this has been really fun. I appreciate your time.
It's so fun. Thank you so much for having me on. It's I'm really flattered to be invited, and it's really fun and really thought-provoking.
Awesome. Great to have you. And if I end up, I mentioned I've got a brother in Tampa, and I don't get to Florida often, but if I end up in the Jacksonville area or whatever,
Tampa's close enough. We can meet halfway, and I'll make you an espresso.
Nebraska. Yeah. Cool. Well, we'll see you downstream, and we'll see you online.
Thank you so much. Really
catch
great.
you down the road. All right. Thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll catch you next time. Bye.